Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jet Report. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, going to be hanging out with you today. We are discussing what New York Jets fans should be, will be, are rooting for on Sunday in their final game of the year against the Miami Dolphins. Before we get into today's video, want to talk to, or episode rather, want to talk to you about Underdog Fantasy. Use my promo code Matt and my sign up link. It's the pinned comment in the chat right now. It is also in the description of the video and the podcast. In order to sign up, they're doing match deposit bonuses, 100% match deposit bonuses. To sign up, I've been having a ton of fun playing the head-to-head matchups. I love doing those, picking higher or lower, who's going to have more, who's going to have less. It's a ton of fun. If you want in on a different kind of daily fantasy experience, Underdog Fantasy has you covered, and so do I. With my promo code Matt, you can pick up a match deposit bonus and get in on the fun while you can. All right, so let's hop into the episode today. As I said, we are gonna get into what the Jets should do and my thoughts on it. I'm gonna pull it up. I had a Twitter poll going. I said, "Do you want the Jets to win or lose on Sunday?" Personally, my plan is to go numb. Just whatever happens. Not going to get bent out of shape over a W or an L. Right now, on this Twitter poll, it is 57.2% want to see a Jets loss. 42.8% would like to see a Jets win on Sunday. There are pros and cons to each one of those scenarios. We'll start with the Jets win. That will knock the Miami Dolphins out of the playoffs. It'll bring the New York Jets up to 8-9. That would bump the Jets up to third place, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wouldn't that bump the Jets up to third place in the division? Let's take a look right now at the playoff standings. The Jets are obviously eliminated, as we know. They are 8-8. Yep. So if the Jets win, they are 8-9, and they would have the tiebreaker. So end the year on a positive note. But the negative of that is you move yourself down in the draft stock, which now that's something that we have to talk about. We'll pull up old friend of the show, Tankathon. Tankathon for the NFL draft. Let's pull that up here. Okay. Tankathon. Right now, the Jets currently have pick number 13. And they're mocked Broderick Jones. How about that? Broderick Jones, pick 13. We could discuss that another time. But right now, they're at pick 13. A win, obviously, could bring them down. A loss, I believe, can bump them all the way up to 10. So there you go. That's another aspect of all of this. Do you want to lose and improve your draft stock? Lose and have the sour taste of a 6-game losing streak in your mouth? I kind of see both sides to it. And like I said, it's not like 2020 at the end of the year there where everyone was rooting for losses because you knew that Darnold wasn't going to be the answer, that they were going to fire Adam Gase, they were going to blow it all up. So wins didn't really matter for that veteran team because they were going to, blow it up and bring in a bunch of different guys. Last year, I used the numb thing to it. I wanted to see growth from the young talent on the team. Obviously, have Big Wilson second overall. You have Elijah Moore and Michael Carter, and you got some stuff out of the rookie class that year, and then you wanted to see the growth there. So I didn't necessarily care if they were winning games and hurting their draft stock. Now, at this point, you kind of got a little bit of everything this year. You had in the hunt. Well, you had the playoff spot, and then you were in the hunt. You played meaningful games in December and January. And if you lose, then you still have a chance to get all that and potentially a top 10 pick. Which is just a wild swing. It kind of shows you just how, I guess, one, how quick things change, and two, I guess, just the mediocrity in the NFL this year. It seems like there's a bunch of teams kind of stuck in the middle, and a few really bad teams and a few really excellent, great teams. So this game could really have a dramatic swing on the Jets' draft positioning, which is something that we're gonna get rolling with. Now we're gonna talk about all that stuff about who the Jets could potentially be choosing, but I will not. If they go out and they win this game, I'm not going to be sitting there crying about losing draft positioning at this point. I'm not. If they lose, you shrug and you go, all right, silver lining, move up in the draft, I guess. Again, I am not going to be emotionally invested in this game. I can feel it right now. That's just my take on it, my overall feeling. I don't think I'm going to be overly emotional with this one. I think it's kind of just you watch, you see what these guys do, and you try some stuff out. That's what you do. And if you win, so be it. If you lose, so be it. But I was curious what Jeff fans thought of it. I'll go through some of the comments and see what you guys think of it. And we'll talk about it today. Remember, super chats jump the line. So if you want to get your question answered right away, send in a super chat. You could join the channel as well. Hit the join button down below. First one we get. We out of the playoffs. The win doesn't help anything. This is from BX Big Shot. Except sorry, let me start over. Yeah, we out of the playoffs. The win doesn't help anything except send us to the offseason with a win. And if I say we keeping Wilson start in the final game, he needs as many reps as possible. I don't think that's one thing that I've seen, and I'm sure we'll get into in this. I don't think you could do anything good for Zach Wilson starting in this game. I think he needs a complete reset. And putting him back out there is only going to kill his confidence. I don't think he's ready to play right now. Starting him isn't the answer. Now, do you want to start Mike White, who's very clearly banged up? Maybe you do start Mike White. I've seen some say Strevler. Strevler would be fun. That would go full tank, I would think. Joe Flacco, I want no part of seeing. So, but Blake McLaughlin says start Strevler and take the L. There you go. I think a lot of people are going to say that. JE says draft CJ Stroud or sign Derek Carr. I don't think CJ Stroud is going to be there for the Jets. He is my quarterback too. I would think that Seattle, Indianapolis, Detroit, the Raiders, the Panthers, all teams like that should be in the mix for a quarterback who are going to be picking ahead of the Jets. So I don't think they are going to be able to draft him, nor do I think this team is really set up to get a rookie quarterback who's going to have their ups and downs. I think it's going to be the veteran. Sergeant CVO says no drafting a quarterback, please. Ogre King, we need to use first 2 picks of draft and bring in some O-line players with some nastiness. Yeah, I think offensive tackle is definitely going to be one. Hell, interior offensive line, whether it's guard or center, I think is going to be another one. It's not a easy thing to fix. You have AVT. You need more. You need more there. Sneakers to Boots. He is a member of the channel. Shout out to Sneakers to Boots. Says Salah isn't the guy. He's too much of a good players coach and worrying about being friends versus giving them the tough love coaches do. Some coaches have success with the tough love and it works. Others, there's been plenty of examples of player coaches who don't necessarily, do that have success. Pete Carroll, who you just played, is the epitome of a player's coach. I don't necessarily think that's fair. Stylistically, you might your preference might be the hard-nosed coach, but Bill Parcells doesn't exist in today's NFL anymore. There really aren't many coaches who get by that way. It's a different era. Micro Fox says play all the unproven players. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Ogre King says give the start to Strevler. Good chance he will be the backup next season. I don't agree with that. Might as well get a better look at him. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think he's QB2 next year. Maybe QB3, but I don't know about QB2. Sneakers to Boots also says scapegoat will likely be Brent Boyer, who's been on this team for the past 3 to 4 coaches. Yeah, the special teams took an absolute swing. Downward swing this year. Punter was really bad. Braxton Berrios was really bad as a returner. Greg Zerloin was an improvement, but the rest of that special teams unit was really, really tough. Nick H, good point, says, but if we win, then the Pats get in. Ugh. What's the scenario? Someone in the chat will know. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm not necessarily looking to look that up. But what's the scenario for the Steelers to make the playoffs? That might be your best shot. Oreo says Sal in his press conference today said the Jets fans have to have patience in Zach and LaFleur. Use Daniel Jones as an example for Zach and himself as a coordinator for LaFleur. Thoughts on this? I mean, That he's very supportive of his guys. I don't know if he's going to be willing to stake his head coaching claim on both of those guys and his future on that going forward. I think he's just very big on publicly supporting his guys. We don't know really what goes on behind the scenes there. Um, I think there is a good chance LaFleur is back. He could also be the scapegoat. That wouldn't be the most shocking thing ever. Woody Johnson might call for someone to take the brunt of this, but um, yeah, it's certainly a possibility. But I don't think their plan is for Zach Wilson to be their day one starter next year. Sawyer says if Mike White plays, he's seriously risking further injury. Does this mean the Jets aren't planning on re-signing him? Don't. It depends on what you want to do in that quarterback room. If you're bringing in a Derek Carr, I don't know, or someone of that caliber. Let's say Derek Carr, Jimmy G, a quarterback who's going to cost, 25 plus $million a year. I don't know how you're going to be able to afford what Mike White is going to cost also as like a $8 million backup. I think he very well could go elsewhere. I don't think they're going to run it back with Mike White and Zach Wilson and have it the competition now. Just based on how this season kind of limped to the finish line. I think they have a lot of pressure on them to end this playoff drought next year. So I think they'll take a big swing. George Thomas says, thanks for bringing us the scenario map. Personally, I don't care if we're picking 10th or 18th. JD can find gems. I trust that. I need to see this coaching staff make drastic improvements, trade, signing. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where I am on it. Like I said, it's not going to really rub me the wrong way if they are picking 10th or 18th. It's just, it sucks that that we have to talk about this. Thankfully, it's only 1 week this year. It's not 9+ weeks or 14 weeks of the season where you're talking about draft positioning in the future. I think there are multiple options for what the Jets can do in the draft depending on where they're picking. We're going to go through a ton of the different scenarios, but for me, I'm not going to work myself up if they end up having the 18th or 15th pick in the draft or whatever the hell it ends up being. It is what it is. Find a way, right? You need your GM and coach and staff to just find a way. Micro Fox says, I think Bryce Young is going to fall because of his size. I think he's going to go first overall. Nally145 says, is the tackle Paris good? I think yes. I think he's probably the best tackle in the class. There's a debate on it. There's 4 tackles who are probably going in the first round. I made the comparison of last week or on somebody's somewhere. I talk too much every day. I don't remember where I say these things, but it kind of reminds me of the 2020 draft when there were 4 tackles and it was kind of the debate on who was going to go where. Kind of reminds me of the same thing. I think he's the safest option and most ready to come in and start at tackle day one. So hopefully that helps. Christopher Sullivan says, following the 49ers. Sorry, it jumped a second. Oh, what the hell happened? Here we go. Following the 49ers method, patience. Us Jet fans got teased and expectations grew. This team should have a playoff mandate next season, especially if a quarterback is brought in. 100%. A playoff mandate is more than acceptable at this point in 2023. It's not asking too much for Joe Douglas to make the playoff in his 5th year, and Robert Saleh to make the playoffs in his 3rd year. Look at what the Giants did with their turnaround. It's absolutely possible. It's time. You need to start seeing the results on it. Anthony says, you play to get a top 10 draft pick. Hello, you play to get a top 10 draft pick. Channeling his inner Herm Edwards, I see. Alex T says, Strevler is terrible. Definitely not this week. We are starting him. He's a fun guy to have in packages, I think. I don't know if that's going to be the answer. Oh, Alex T says, here we go. This is the Steelers. If the Pats lose and the Dolphins lose, and the Steelers would have to win their game too, I'm imagining. There we go. Okay, so we are getting some of the answers here on if the Steelers make it. I would rather see them get in than some of the other options on the table, especially the division rivals. V-Man says Jets need Carr. We can't afford to trade picks. V-Man, while I do think that they are going to make a strong push for someone like that, it's probably not going to cost you as much as you might think to get Derek Carr because of the contract attached to it. We've seen quarterbacks with some big contracts attached get moved for conditionals. Maybe like a third and a pick next year. I don't think it's going to be crazy amount of draft capital going the other way. There's a chance that he could be outright cut. Now, with the demand for quarterback, I don't know how likely it is that they're just not going to be able to find someone to take some sort of flyer on him via trade, but I don't think it's going to be any drastic draft capital that's going the other way towards the Raiders in this one. Matthew Smith, here we go. Steelers haven't had a losing season in 20 plus years. No excuse to not find good players consistently. What they are so lucky, right? Like that's just an organization that is so well run, and they're in it and relevant every single year. Obviously, they don't win every single year. It's hard to win every single year, but they're just a really damn good football team that is always respectable and always relevant. Christopher says, who do you see cut this offseason? Does Lawson and Davis and Mosley look to be more pay cut / restructure? Yeah, I think Corey Davis, I think you outright cut. He's missed too much time. The drops and penalties are beyond frustrating. I'm kind of just over it with Corey Davis. The restructure with Lawson and or Mosley, I think, is also something that could potentially be worthwhile. They could outright cut Carl Lawson too and save money. They restructured once already with Mosley. I don't know if they would do it again. I do think the linebacker room and the safety room specifically are two positional groups that drastically need to be redone because they're not very good at all. There we go. Christopher says, based on the last few weeks, do you see McGovern being a goner? Yeah, I kind of do. For a while, I thought that they were going to bring him back, and I thought he had a good start to his 2022 campaign, but fell off a cliff in the second half. Really did. George Thomas says, Matt, penny for your thoughts. Zach Wilson has to learn the system Saleh and LaFleur wants to implement. Should coaches adapt to their players and utilize their strengths, not defending Zach? Yes. Yes, to an extent would be my answer. When your quarterback isn't able to do some of the basic things and are missing one, open reads, and two, just are very inaccurate because of the mechanical flaws that are going on with them, it makes your job a lot harder. Could they have done more, rolled them out more? Yes, but also it's on the quarterback as well. There's a lot of reasons why things went drastically wrong this year with Zach. Again, part of it's the play calling. Part of it is them not getting a veteran in here to replace Knapp and not bringing back Beck and all those things. But I think there's a lot that goes into it. That's a fair ask, but I think you also need to have your guy be able to do the simple things, and he wasn't able to do that. Billy SBC says sign Baker, keep White and Zach, and bring in a top quarterback coach. That doesn't really move the needle enough for me, unfortunately. Sergeant CVO says cut Man Davis Fant ASAP. Fant is a free agent. He's just going to walk. He was really ineffective this year. Sneakers to Boots 1000% says it's insanity that we're yet again have to rebuild this O-line and allocate resources to it. Yep, it happens constantly, 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 constantly. Matthew Smith right under it says, keep McGovern. He is so healthy. That's his best attribute is the availability. But is he going to need a pay raise? Because I don't know how much more I'm willing to spend on McGovern. And was he making $9 million a year? Are you going to pay him $10, $11 million a year? Don't know. Mr. Downtown. Hey, Matt. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. I had to think about this, but I believe we can't have OC MLF fired. It will be hard to replace him as no quality OC candidate will join a staff with Salah on the hot seat. I think if they were to make a switch, I think you can make a legit possibility for someone like Frank Reich to be the offensive coordinator because he has the head coaching experience. He has the experience with, building up young quarterbacks and has been one of the better play callers and offensive minds. So if they were to make a move, that would be the obvious candidate, but it's not. It's easier said than done, right? There's 30 other teams in the league, 31 other teams in the league. So it's not the easiest. Ryan says McGovern isn't getting a pay raise after the season, but he is the best center at that to hit the market, can probably keep him at the same cost with higher guarantee. That's the thing that I worry about. While his play doesn't necessarily dictate that he deserves a raise, if he's the best one, there's going to be a bidding war. That's how free agency works, and free agency guys get overpaid all the time. Am I willing to overpay for McGovern, or am I going to turn to the draft? I might turn to the draft. Vinny in the Jet says, Matt, we know Woody loves headlines. You can't tell me he won't at least place a phone call to Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. For Sean Payton having to give up a draft pick for it, I wouldn't like that. It's Woody's done a lot crazier things. Supposedly, Harbaugh was connected to the Panthers, which would be interesting going back to the college again, even though Harbaugh had success at the NFL. I wouldn't be for it, but you're right in the sense that, when you say here that he loves his headlines, he does. Matthew Smith, good point, says Frank Wright has ties to JD and I want him so bad. Yep, because of their time in Philly. Let's do that. Let's pull up what Frank Reich was able to do as a coach with with Philadelphia. It was only a 2-year stint, but they were, let's see, in his best year in 2017, in 2017, 7th in yards, 3rd in points, got a ton out of Carson Wentz. 2018 leaves to be the head coach at Indianapolis. He did have Andrew Luck that first year, right? I believe 2018 he had Luck. Yep, and Luck put up monster numbers. Then after that, he dealt with a revolving door at the quarterback position. 2019 really stunk. I think Jacoby Brissett most of their, if I'm not mistaken. He did. He started 15, and they were ranked relatively low. Sorry, 25th and 16th in yards and points, but 10-9 in 2020 with Phillip Rivers. With Carson Wentz again in 2021, 16-9. This year was obviously really tough. They struggled mightily, but as an OC, yeah, if you're going to make a change, that would be the one. Sneakers to boots. Another one. Drafting AVT Sauce. Garrett Wilson. Brees has saved JD's job. DJ Reed is the only free agent panning out. He needs to hit more in free agency, and maybe that's a shakeup that you do. Reevaluate your pro scouting department because not good enough. College has been pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good, especially this past year. But pro scouting, maybe that's where you start to make some changes. Oreo says, at what point do we start holding JD and Salah to the fire? If we don't make the playoffs next year, do you believe Salah and JD make it another year? I don't want another rebuild. I'm too old for this. I agree. I don't want to sit through another rebuild, but if they both miss the playoffs, if they miss the playoffs again next year, I don't know how you could run it back for a 4th year of Salah and then another year with JD. There's no reason this team shouldn't be a 10-plus win team next year. 10, 11 games with a legitimate quarterback. They are at that point right now. They have to get better. They have to improve. Oh, Mr. Downtown also brings up another one. Anthony Lynn could be a candidate. He has Jets ties and is a current coach on the Niners. Yes, Anthony Lynn, not a very good head coach. I am curious to see where he was. He was Buffalo's OC in 2016, and then the interim in 2016 after they fired Rex, 16th in yards, 10th in points. Chargers put up some pretty nice numbers offensively with both Rivers and Herbert. 2021 OC for Detroit wasn't very good. 22 and 25, but at least that's a veteran guy, an experience. It's someone with experience who's worked well with quarterbacks. So Jace B brings up a good point here. I don't understand why the Jets performed so badly when coming off a 10-plus day break under Saleh. We're 0-4 in that period, and all losses have been bad performances. That's a great point. Is that true? I'm assuming that it is, that after buys too, they've struggled this year. They doors blown off, not blown off, but you lost 10-3 after the bye this year. You also had the Jacksonville debacle, the Seattle debacle after the Jacksonville game, 23-6. Last year, let's see what it looked like. I should pull this up. I should share it on the screen. In 2021, after the bye, you lost 54-13. Yuck. And then 45-17 against Buffalo. Really bad. The Buffalo one is a little bit more understandable because of the quarterback play that they got in it, but yeah, that's not good. Phil Adams, preaching as always, says average quarterback would have gotten the 2022 Jets into the playoffs. No doubt, which is why I think they're going to be aggressive at the quarterback market this year. I think they want a veteran. I don't think they want to take the chance with a rookie or a young guy or someone who's not proven. So they know that the pressure is on in 2023, right? Like they know it's time. You got to start winning. Micro Fox says my favorite for the OC job is Bill O'Brien. I like his energy. I don't want that toxic man anywhere near the New York Jets. I'm all good with Bill O'Brien. I don't think he's that good, to be honest with you. Alabama hasn't been that great. Some of their worst performance has been with him as their guy. In New England, he was the OC of the his only year as an offensive coordinator in the NFL was the 2011 New England Patriots. He had Tom Brady. He had Julian, prime Gronkowski, the other tight end who we don't have to mention, who's phenomenal before the off-field stuff happened. They had prime Wes Welker. I could have called plays for that team. Deion is another receiver they had. Absolutely. So no, that's a no for me on Bill O'Brien. Sergeant CBS says, when is Belichick retiring? Never. He's going to live to 200 years old and coach forever. That's how I feel. Jay Johnson says, do you think we go into the draft aiming for Florida's quarterback? That's someone I don't want to draft either him or Hooker, and both for different reasons. So Hooker is 25 years old and coming off another injury. So he's a much older prospect who's had injury issues in college. And with Richardson, the Florida quarterback, there's a lot of talent there, but that's another developmental quarterback. The Jets can't afford to take a developmental quarterback in the first round. They can't. It kind of like reminds me of the 49ers when they took Trey Lance. Developmental guy, big arm, has a lot of physical traits, has a lot of physical tools, but needed to sit. And he sat behind Jimmy G, and that's worked for them. But the Jets don't have that guy that they could sit him behind. So I would say no. Christopher says it's weird how the rookies carried this team and the vets were disappointing. That's so bizarre. That normally does not happen in the NFL. That's so rare that it happened. Mr. Downtown's back says, I don't understand why the Jets only make adjustments at halftime. Seattle was the weakest team against the run, and we couldn't even crack 150 yards against them. Just bad. Just really, really bad. There's no excuse for it. Kevin says it's weird. Tomlinson played well in San Francisco and terrible with us. Is LaFleur responsible for that and the offense underperforming? Well, he was there when LaFleur was there also as the pass game coordinator, no? Yeah, Lakin was there from 2017 to 2021. And obviously we know that for a majority of that time, you also had LaFleur there, who was very involved in the offense. So I don't think it's a LaFleur issue. Maybe it's age, maybe it's the revolving door of people who played next to him on the left side. Maybe obviously playing next to a great left tackle in Trent Williamson is a big difference, but Trent Williams is a big difference, but it's just not good. Phil Adams asks a good question. I don't know if it's more rhetorical or just putting it out there. He says, would Saleh put personal loyalty to LaFleur over keeping his own job as head coach? I don't think so. I don't think anybody does that. I've seen people say like, oh, they're friends. He's never going to fire him. I get that. They've worked closely together. They are very close, but there's only so many head coaching jobs, and he has a rare opportunity here. You don't know if you're going to get another crack at it. Some guys don't get that another chance. Is he going to be stubborn and stick by that guy to potentially ruin his chance? I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. Anthony says, Matt Rule, it took Jay-Z 7 years to become Jay-Z. Maybe Saleh needs 7 years, question mark. He ain't getting 7 years if they're not making the playoffs. Jace B says, I don't want Will Levis either. He's another developmental too. Has arm talent, but struggles in games. Look, I think there are two that I really like a lot in Young and CJ Stroud, but that doesn't change my stance that I don't think the Jets can afford to take a quarterback who's going to be playing on a learning curve in 2023 when this team has a playoff mandate. I think they're going to go the veteran route. They tried with Sam. They tried with Zach to go top quarterback. Hasn't worked. They're going to go veteran, I think. Modine, love the positivity. Thank you for joining us. As Jets will be as bad or worse next year. Thank you, Modine, for chiming in. Mr. Downtown says, I was a fan of Hooker, but understand the age issue. Max Duggan, TCU, and Spencer Rattler are some talented quarterbacks you can have sit for a year and develop. Now, if you want to use a 4th or 5th round pick on a developmental guy and have them sit and have a legitimate veteran in place, that is a very different story than taking one in the 1st or 2nd round. When you have holes to fill like offensive line and linebacker and safety. Jingle Dub says, Robert Saleh keeps saying it takes time. He means for Zach to develop and LaFleur to flourish. I like the play on words there. He's going to run out of time, unfortunately, if there aren't changes. Dan NY says, could you see us go for 2 veterans quarterbacks in 23? Potentially. So if you sign Jimmy G, right? Let's play the game. Let's say they sign Jimmy G. With his injury history, you got to have another veteran in there. I would imagine, right? Like Case Keenum, Jacoby Brissett, someone like that. Jace B says, thoughts on Tanner McKee, 6'6" Stanford quarterback, and he's looking like a day 2 to 3 quarterback. Honestly, I don't know enough about him to speak on him. Um, I don't know a ton about him other than that he's probably going to be somewhere in the uh, go in the middle rounds, and that he's big. Um, so I have to do a little bit more digging on that, which is going to start happening soon because again, a top quarterback I don't think is likely. Mid round guy maybe, so that's someone that I'm going to keep an eye on. Jay Johnson says any faith in Becton. I'm rooting for the guy. I really am. I thought he was impressive as a rookie, but you can't go into next year. And I did a video on it yesterday. You can't go into next year with him as plan A for left tackle or right tackle, even for that matter. He's missed 2 full years, 2 straight full years. If he is competitive and he beats somebody out for a job, and remains healthy, that's I would love that for him. I want to see that happen for Makai. I think he works hard. I think he gets a bad rap from a lot of people, which I think a part of it's unfair, but he's got to prove that he can stay healthy, which the last 2 years he hasn't been able to do. So I don't think you can just gift him a starting job. I think he's got to earn it. I think he'll be here. I don't think you're cutting him. You're not giving him his 5th-year option. You can't trade him. So I think he'll be here, but probably just for depth. NCV Man says Tannehill has been mentioned. Thoughts? Low cost guy. I don't really like Ryan Tannehill. I'm not a Ryan Tannehill guy. I don't think that would be. That's pretty far down on the list of veterans for me. Oh, Brian, don't even do this to me. He says, worst case, the Jets trade their 3rd-round pick for Carson Wentz to have him start in front of Zach Wilson with Joe Flacco on the practice squad. The Jets sell bleach for a drink at MetLife. Yeah, add me in on that, please. I don't think I'd be able to take that. Kevin 2001, he's in. He just joined. Says, I do want to have a better draft pick, but it pains me to root for the Dolphins to win. Yeah, that would be tough losing to them, especially with Skylar Thompson's more than likely going to start this game, right? I don't see how Teddy's going to play. He can't play Tua. He's had 3 concussions this year. He can't play again. Jingle Dub says I'd rather Mike White over Ryan Tannehill. That's probably yes. I think I'm there as well. Brian says Carson Wentz would legit be the end of my Jets fandom if they went that route. You would never see me at a Jets game again. Yeah, it's early in his career. I liked him. 2016 was rookie. 2017 looked like he was going to be league MVP. Pretty good in 2018, but then 19 started to fall off. 20 was rough. 2021 okay, implodes at the end, and then now this year it stunk. Adam Mess says it's possible JD has his eye on a quarterback in the mid rounds. I agree. I think that is something that is absolutely on the table and should be there for consideration. I have time for a few more in here. Get any last minute questions in here? J Cap says, why do I see the Colts getting Mike White and making him the starter? I personally don't. I think they're going to go the rookie route finally. They've tried the veteran plug with Matt Ryan. They tried it with Phillip Rivers. They tried it with Carson Wentz. I think it's going to be one of those. I think it's going to be a rookie. Oreo says, with Joyner gone and probably all our linebackers gone, how good do you see this Jets defense being next year? I'm afraid we won't have the defense to bail out the offense next year. I think they'll still be fine. They just have to find creative ways to replace those guys. You might have to sign a safety in free agency. You might have to draft 1, maybe 2 linebackers. Jamie and Sherwood is someone that they like a lot, who's kind of gotten a little bit more playing time. Maybe he comes in and is ready for a bigger role. There's ways to do it. And I think, am I crazy for saying if I were to keep any of the linebackers, Kwan might be the one that I would keep? I think he would be pretty low cost. Quincy Williams is still very, very streaky. He was better this year. He way better this year. He was much more consistent, but still missed tackles are such a huge issue for him and for this team. Jordan Whitehead, I would cut and save money. And then I think you're drafting a safety and a linebacker early. So I'm not opposed to that. Mr. Downtown says if the Jets do not sign either Jimmy G, Carr, or Tannehill for next season, they can start packing early. I agree. I think it's going to be a veteran. I think Jimmy G and Carr are your most likely options. Kevin agrees with keeping Quan. Dan NY says Quincy and Quan feel like keepers. Quan was great. JD Jet says I like Quan and Quincy. Brian says have to be drafting a wide receiver early too. Again, I started working on, if you guys have followed the channel for a while, every year I do a fixing the Jets for the following year where we go through cuts, signings, extensions, free agency, mock draft, all that stuff. I think that the Jets could find a mid-tier wide receiver in free agency and go that route for their wide receiver 3 role or X receiver role, I guess. Forever Puddle asked, don't we have a dead cap hit on Whitehead? It's not much, though. I'll pull it up. I was just looking at it yesterday. Give me a second. That's where we'll close with. So where's Jordan Whitehead? Here we go. Jordan Whitehead. I love the pop-ups on this site. Oh, Christmas. Come on. Now I lost him. Here we go. Jordan Whitehead. If you were to cut him, it would be 2.98 against the cap versus 7.25 in saving. What if you do post June 1st? It's the same. So it doesn't matter. I think you cut him and you eat the $3 million to save over $7 million. That's going to add up over time. Mr. Downtown says, Matt, it's too early to ask you for a mock draft team. Try to hold the questions for as long as I could. We're going to get into more stuff. Another week and we'll be there, guys. I promise. So thank you for hanging out with me on this Tuesday. We are back tomorrow talking Jets tonight. Also want to mention on the Talking Jets show, we're going live from 8 to 10, like always, like we usually do. I am excited for this one. And it's because we are donating all super chats to Damar Hamlin's charity. What happened last night on Monday Night Football was one of these things that I've ever seen watching sports. I can't believe what happened and what we saw on the field. That was beyond scary. So Ryan Greenbean and I decided that we think it would be best to bring awareness to him and his charity and send any super chats or revenue from the video or the live stream to his charity and show some love for a rival on the field, but a football family member. So praying for him. Thoughts to Hamlin right now. Just again, unbelievable stuff. It was sickening watching that. So that's happening at tonight. Tomorrow, new episode of Just Jets. And then another live stream at 2 if you guys want to hang out. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Matt O'Leary, and I'll catch you guys next time.